elections, mental health in rural areas, and the importance of a county party. So thanks for everything that you're doing. I'm so thrilled to be here. We are wrapping up a bus tour that has taken us from Des Moines, where I had the opportunity to speak on Friday at the Liberty and Justice Dinner. If you were there, thank you for being part of that. It was a phenomenal night for us. Crisscrossing the state and speaking with voters about the question that I think most needs to be on our mind right now in deciding the future of this country. And it's to picture the day that the sun comes up, that first day in America, when the sun rises, and Donald Trump is no longer the president of the United States. So it sounds like folks here are ready for that day, just like a lot of places where I go across this state, where progressives, moderates, and an awful lot of Republicans are ready to bring about something different and turn the page to something better than what we've been living with, because we cannot afford 4 more years of what we've been going through as a country. Having said that, part of why I'm asking you to paint that picture is not just to give us something to look forward to. It's to really picture what we're going to need from each other, from our country, and from our president on that day. There's definitely a lot to look forward to. An end to the chaos and the corruption and the tweets. Be nice to get through a day without hearing about a tweet coming out of the White House. But the sun's also going to come up over a country that will be even more divided, even more torn up by politics than we are right now. With everything that we've been through, with everything we are about to go through as a country, we're going to be exhausted from fighting. And at the same time, we're also going to face these very serious policy issues that haven't taken a vacation while the impeachment process was going on, or while this presidency was going on. We're still going to be approaching the point of no return when it comes to our climate. We're still going to have a crisis of gun violence that has our kids sometimes learning active shooter drills before they learn to read. We're still going to have an economy that's leaving way too many parts of the country behind, and where way too many Americans feel like it's taking everything they've got just to hold on to what they have, let alone to try to get ahead. Which means that we're going to need to take bold, real, major, significant action on all of those issues, and at the very same time, figure out a way to do it that unifies a frighteningly polarized, dangerously divided country. So I'm running to be the president who can stand on the rubble that day after the election, that day after the presidency ends, and pick up the pieces and gather them together and bring us to a better place. That's what this election is about. The good news is there's a way to do that. There's a way to solve these big crises that are at our feet and do it in a way that actually unifies the American people. We can do that, and we should, and we have to. And it all begins with the values that we share as Americans. Some of the same values that have been invoked to drive us apart, to put wedges between us, are actually values that could be unifying us. I'm thinking about our relationship, for example, to our own country. Patriotism, the flag. The importance of the flag, not as a weapon, not as something being used to tell people they don't belong, but as something that all of us have in common by virtue of the fact that we are Americans. The idea of the flag is that it belongs to all of us. Yeah. And I'm not talking about nationalism. I'm not talking about hugging the flag, as the president has been known to do occasionally. I'm talking about honoring the flag. And honoring the flag means honoring the values that it stands for. Also means respecting the rights that it stands for. That's one of the reasons when somebody puts their career on the line to testify or to blow the whistle on official misconduct, that is an act of loyalty to the republic for which it stands and deserves to be respected and protected. Now, the patriotism I'm talking about, the love of country that I'm talking about, is one that never forgets that our country is made of people. You can't love our country if you hate half of the people in it. We're in this together. And loving our country, protecting our country, means protecting each other. That's why we have to see to it that never again will the Second Amendment be twisted into something it never should have been, which is an excuse to do nothing whatsoever on common sense gun law to save lives in American schools and shopping centers and places of worship. Protecting our country means protecting our future, which is why we've got to lead the world in dealing with climate change as the global security threat of our time. That's a matter of national security too. And when it does come to what we've got to deal with abroad, it means making sure we recognize that protecting our country means protecting our country's credibility, protecting the honor of our soldiers, and that means making sure that no one would ever question, no would-be ally would ever question, whether it is worth betting your life on the credibility and trustworthiness of the United States of America. This kind of patriotism I plan to stand on as president. There's so many values that they've been tearing us up over that could bring us together. I'm thinking about faith. I've been thinking about faith a lot lately. And faith doesn't have to be something to divide us. But first of all, we got to recognize that one of those many values honored by our flag is the fact that it belongs to people of every religion and of no religion equally. That's a basic American principle. But I'm also offering to people who are guided by a faith tradition in making their decisions about what they think is right and wrong, that when I'm president, you'll never have to look at the White House and scratch your head and think, whatever happened to I was hungry and you fed me, I was a stranger and you welcomed me, whatever you've done to the least of these, you have done to me. Those values matter to me. I'm thinking about democracy, not as a system, but as a value. The belief that our country is better when the views of everybody are taken into account, and when we have a system that actually reflects what we, the American people, want. That's why it's so important to do something about Citizens United and get money out of politics. That's why we ought to have districts drawn fairly instead of allowing them in so many parts of the country to be drawn to where you basically have your politician choosing their voters instead of your voters choosing your politicians. You would call me simplistic, but I've even gone so far as to suggest that in a democracy, come November in the future, we might choose our president by just counting up all of the votes and giving the office to the person who got the most support from the American people. That's common sense to me. And the other one that I think is so important for us to come together around right now is the idea of freedom. But again, it's got to be a big vision of freedom. It's not freedom in the form of just cutting every regulation or tax you can find. I'm not terribly interested in preserving Amazon's freedom to not have to pay any income taxes at all. I'm talking about something a little bigger than that. I'm talking about the freedom to live our lives well. And sometimes that's about getting government out of the way. Sometimes it's about making sure the public sector steps up. Sometimes it's very much about getting government out of the way. I believe we got to get government, for example, out of the business of telling women what their reproductive health care choices are. But other times it means demanding better results from the public sector. That is why we need to step up and ensure that we deliver health care in the form of Medicare for all who want it, because you're not free if you don't have health care. But also in the name of freedom, the way I do it is we take a version of Medicare, we make it available for everybody who wants it, but I'm not going to assume whether you want it or when you want it. We think it'll be the best plan, and so we think most people will choose it. But I'm not going to order you to give up your private plan because I trust you to make the right decision for your family and for your own health. By the way, another area where we expect the public sector to deliver, but we got to invest if we mean business, is education. So one thing I'm offering as president is you can expect a Secretary of Education who believes in public education and supports American teachers and lets teachers do their job. Educators deserve that kind of support. and help is on the way. So my point is that we can not only unify around these values, we're not going to convince everybody of everything. That's not my point. My point is that the American people are ready for this. American people, there's a strong American majority for action on every one of the things I just mentioned. And it's based on values that belong to all of us, even if we don't always see everything the same way. And that's why we have an opportunity to have a White House where you turn on the news and you see your president doing real things, heavy lifting and bold action. And at the same time, when you see your president open their mouth, see your blood pressure go down a little bit instead of up to the roof. That's what I'm offering the American people. And that's something we can do, and we're going to have to, because we got so many big challenges in front of us. We got to take on racial inequality in this country, which was why I've proposed the Douglas Plan, as ambitious as the Marshall Plan that rebuilt Europe, but this time investing it right here at home in making sure that we have greater equity across every area of American life so that race has no bearing on your health or your wealth or your life expectancy or your relationship with law enforcement. I believe we can come together and deliver a plan for national service opportunities. The same kind of service experiences like what I had in the military that connected me to Americans who were completely different from me, but without you having to go to war in order to get there, by creating 1 billion voluntary paid civilian national service opportunities a year. We can rise to meet the toughest challenges of our time, and when we do, we're going to have something else to show for it that might be the most important of all. And that is a sense of belonging, an answer to the crisis of belonging that we're feeling in this country. Because right now, from the White House on down, there are all these voices telling so many Americans in different ways and for different reasons that you don't belong. Because of your age or your race or your religion or who you love or who you are or where you fit in the economy or disability, whatever it is, people are being told you don't fit. And we've got to do something about that. And we can do something about that. One of the best moments in this whole campaign was when a student came up to me, a high schooler, and let me know that our campaign had signaled to her that she had a place in her school and in her community. She said, I can go to school, having looked at your campaign, I now believe that I can go to school, talk about what I believe in, not be ashamed just because I have autism. And I remember hearing that story and thinking, now we're really getting somewhere. Because if this campaign let her know, in some way that I don't even completely understand, let her know, spoke to her and let her know she fits. If we can do that in a campaign months and months before the first vote is even cast, imagine what the American presidency can do if it is intentionally used to build up a sense of belonging in this country. This is what the presidency is for, the purpose of the presidency. Not the glorification of the president, but the unification and empowerment of the American people in a shared sense of belonging and a stronger sense of purpose. That's why I am asking you to caucus for me on February 5th. So, I didn't come here just to talk at you. I'd love to have a conversation about the things that most affect you and make sure that we're responding. So we've gathered up questions from the folks in the audience, and I'd like you to welcome, as your voice to lead the conversation, Celeste to the stage, who's going to take us through the famous fishbowl and get into some of these questions. Thanks.